Oh, stop it. Stop it. Welcome back to All God's Grace. I know I'm always excited to be here, but oh my goodness, I'm excited to be here. It's been crazy, absolutely crazy. So, where have I been? It's been 8 weeks. My last episode was May 12th. First of all, thank you for waiting. And thank you for everyone who's messaged me asking me where the podcast has been. And thank you for giving me something I didn't realize I needed, which is grace. Because if I'm honest, I had to learn how to extend that to myself. Now, here's what's funny. I don't even know if I want to call the last 8 weeks a break because it was not intentional. I didn't wake up one day and think, you know what? I'm going to stop recording. I need a break. I didn't quit. I wasn't burned out. I wasn't frustrated, although we did just hit 250 downloads on Buzzsprout, which is insane because they don't tell you when you start a podcast how hard that is. Um, just a little segue. I remember I was sitting in my living room at my mom's house back in Homeworth, Ohio, and she was like, "How many downloads do you have to get before you are monetized?" And I was like, "I think it's like 10,000." And ChatGPT told me that I could get there by March. And I started this December 24th. So March is January, February, March. That's 3 months. No, ma'am. It's July, and I'm at 250. So anyway, the podcast wasn't wearing me out. I didn't take a break. Life just kept happening. I was not distracted. In fact, I was actually locked in. I learned a lot in this whole podcast thing because not only was I still working as a full-time realtor and doing my mom's stuff. And if you don't know, I teach a couple yoga classes a week and I try to post on those pages as well. And it is hard, but what I knew is that the internet would be here. This would be here. Podcast would be here. YouTube would be there. Instagram would be there whenever it was time to come back. So maybe more accurately, I knew it would be here when God told me it was time. And I told myself when I was giving myself the grace that God would clock me back in when I was ready. And the craziest thing happened. My sweet niece, Hannah, she's going to pick on me or she's going to be mad for calling her out. Probably not because she's on the God's Grace podcast. But my niece's graduation party, it wasn't even last weekend. I think it was the weekend before. It all hit. I had one family member and one friend pull me aside and they're like, "Hey, tell me about this podcast. Like, why'd you start doing this?" So I told them about the Charlie Kirk thing and what the heck is my purpose and what am I doing with my life if I'm not like doing it for the Lord. And it was just really eye opening that yes, people do listen to the podcast and yes, it is speaking to people. So anyway, I know I'm going to get into this a little bit later. It's so funny. I still get nervous for these doggone podcasts, but I know I'm going to get into this later. But my niece's graduation party, she had the cutest thing. So she had a Bible out on her graduation table for guests to highlight a verse and leave a note. And I'm not going to give it away, the verse that I open the Bible to, which is shocking to me every time. I don't know how many of you just read the Bible and actually open a physical Bible. I've gotten away from that actually. The Bible app is like my saving grace. I really enjoy the Bible app. I love the guidance it gives. I do not work for the Bible app. I am not sponsored by the Bible app, but it's been a while since I have just opened the Bible to a verse. So anyway, we'll get into what that verse was, but it hit me in the face. The whole podcast thing, like it was like, it's time. Episode 12 is happening. So there I was, this little tiny tug in the back of my mind, though, where I told everybody on the podcast and the whole algorithm of the release is every 2 weeks. And I don't want to say that I felt obligated, but I don't know what a synonym for that is or a similar word, but it was tugging at me that I said new episodes every 2 weeks. And every time another week passed, I think, oh, I should probably record. But it just wasn't there. It wasn't calling me. It didn't feel organic. And I, I've thought so much about this lately because I didn't call myself to do the podcast, right? God called me to do the podcast. So here am I like not listening to God's calling, but I also felt like God wasn't giving me what to do. Because if you listen to the first couple episodes, I thought it was this crazy thing that God gave me a message and then I would shoot the podcast. So I feel like I waited for said message and we're finally back. So I had the timeline and convinced myself that I made the timeline and God humbled me again and said, "No, honey, it's my timeline." But we're back. All that to say, we're back. And I've learned so much in these 8 weeks. So, what have I been doing? Honestly, just living. And I know that sounds so weird because so many people, not so many, but a couple of people have said my trigger word. I don't know if I've said that on the podcast before, but my trigger word is busy. I don't like it. I don't know why. Somebody said it at some point that busy is professional nothingness. You're not accomplishing anything. You're just checking things off, but you're not getting anything done. And I don't like that because I really don't feel like I'm busy. Everything that I do, I thoroughly enjoy, right? I like being a parent, which we're also going to talk about today. Some big fails in that department. I like being a wife. I like cleaning my house, which don't come at me because my husband doesn't listen to these. But if he did, he'd be like, "It's not clean." It's actually pretty clean right now. But I don't feel, I don't like the word busy. It feels chaos to me. It doesn't feel productive. And I do feel I am productive in a chaotic fashion, but I still don't feel like it's busy. I do just feel like I'm living in what I like to do. I love serving people. Obviously, as a realtor, I'm with people every day. I've got 14 listings right now. That's 28. Most of them are couples. That's 28 people that I'm interfacing with on a regular basis. And then not including the people on my team, the 7 or 10 buyers that I'm working with. And I don't feel like it's busy. I feel like I am highly structured. I think that's a Dana Gentry definition for that. Yes, it's a chaotic fashion, but I don't like the word busy. So I was just living in this peaceful chaos. That's a little crazy to say, but I really do feel I was just locked in. And yeah, there's still some crazy in there, but I just felt at peace with everything I had going on. And of course, there's a little element of summer with the kids. I think one of my weaknesses as a grown woman is parenting in the summer. It is just not for me. I am not cut out for it, which again, we're going to get into when all of that came to a screeching halt. But anyway, God's been moving in my life. My kids are doing the summer things. We've been swimming, we did sports. I think that's what threw me into a tizzy this summer as well, is our 5-year-old started sports. And then my 10-year-old did football and soccer. So of course that wasn't summer though. That was just at the end of spring there. But Bradley did T-ball and that was Tuesday and Thursday nights at 6:30 to 7:30. That's late. Like we start tying down for bed at 7:30. So I know parents with young ones like that. I know I wasn't the only one, which was refreshing and that helped me give myself grace. But then friends, I am in a mom's group, which I need you guys. I need you guys back. We've all been like the depths of summer and have kind of lost touch with our mom's night out. I just saw an invitation come through from my girl Brittany yesterday, which I'm really excited to get back with everybody. But man, summer, late bedtimes, we've restocked popsicles a million times, but life has just been so full and I have been enjoying it. But while we're confessing things, let me tell you something that's driving me crazy. And I'm almost shocked. I'll give a little shout out here to Nikki Gulick. She and I went to college together at University of Dayton, and she is insanely successful down in Springboro, Southern Ohio, there in Dayton area. and she got her broker's license. Yay! I think it was like a week or two ago. And she did this amazing post on her social media about passing her exam. And she's also a broker in Florida. So super cool there. But it really made me sick for myself because I passed my exam, got my broker's license. I sent a private text to my clients that had closed properties and that I had been working with in the last year. I gave them a coffee gift card for Starbucks to celebrate my broker's license, but I didn't come out and announce it. And I just feel like it felt like something I didn't need to do. Again, going back to the internet isn't my life archives. Like, I don't need to put everything out there. But at the same time, I worked freaking hard on that. I failed that test twice. And I studied for a full year for it. And I got the license and I told my mom, I told my grandma, and I told my family, and everybody was so proud of me. And I was like, okay, that's it. But anyway, so look for that because I worked really hard on that. And some of you know, but again, so I was just living life that I didn't feel the need to be present on socials. And you can look back at my last month. Well, it's been 8 weeks, so 2 months that I didn't disappear. I mean, I still posted and I still did some things, but it wasn't my priority. And I didn't quit again, just like the podcast. I didn't even take a break. I was just focused on other things. So I will be celebrating my broker's license though. So stay tuned on how I do that because I also don't know how I'll do that yet. But God was just telling me this whole time like the internet will still be there. My clients will still be there. My accomplishments aren't less meaningful because Instagram hasn't celebrated it yet. But it just hit me because how often do we think if I don't announce it, did it even happen? Of course it did. But it was just something weird that I realized this past month, like the internet can wait. And I think that these last 8 weeks have been teaching me not everything has to happen on a timeline. Not everything has to happen on a timeline. And that's hard for a type A person who really likes a jam packed schedule to feel productive. I talked about this in one of the podcasts, maybe it was episode 3 or 4 about high functioning people. Like we have to have timelines. We have to have the things to check off to feel successful. And it was crazy just these last 8 weeks where like, no, I was locked in elsewhere and not everything had to be out in front to make me feel that way. And again, that came from such a place of peace that I acknowledged it. Like at the end of the week, I'd be like, oh, I didn't post on social media this week, or oh, I didn't another week went by where I didn't announce my broker's license. But again, it just felt natural. It just felt like not everything had to become a post and I was just allowed to live. And it's crazy, but I actually think I forgot what that felt like. And then everything came to a screeching halt. Oh, I'm getting chills because the night my husband, my 5-year-old, my 10-year-old, and I were supposed to leave for Mexico, I text my ex-husband and I said, "Hey, don't forget to bring Georgie's passport when you drop him off." And I remember because I was standing in the hallway with my husband and in the middle of my house, we were just standing there and my Georgie's dad, so I text him, "Don't forget to send him with his passport." And he texts me back, "Why?" And I looked up at my husband and I showed him my phone. I was like, why would he say this to me? Like, he knows we're going to Mexico. Like, I held the phone up to show my husband the text from George's dad. I was like, why would he say this? It's not that he said it. He put a picture of the passport in it. I'm excited for Mexico. We leave at 4:50 in the morning and I'm not putting 1 plus 2 together. The passport was expired. My 10-year-old's passport was expired. I went into an absolute tizzy. I think all the suppressed drama and suppressed emotion that I've gotten really good at controlling all came out. I literally was like, "What?" Through an absolute I remember telling George on the phone, George's dad, I said, "I am probably gonna come pick him up. We're either gonna drive to Detroit or, um, cancel the trip. Like that, those were the two thoughts in my head: driving to Detroit for emergency 1 day passport service or canceling the trip. Well, I do these yoga vacations where I'm the yoga teacher for the resort for the week. And my companion and my two kids, they get to go for free because I'm a part of the staff for the week. So I actually reached out to the company and I said, "Hey, am I allowed to cancel my trip?" And I knew that the answer was no. I'd probably let go from the service and not be able to do any more of those trips. And I really like those. I've done a lot of them since 2012. So all that to say, I went and picked up Georgie. This was at 9:18 in the morning. I remember it very specifically. We started on the road. My sister is an incredible travel agent, which God bless her heart. She was in Europe at the time, and I don't even remember what happened. Like if I screenshotted it and put it in my family chat, or if I just called her in an absolute tizzy, but it had to have been, I mean, I don't know what time Europe is right now, but they had to have been before or ahead of our time zone. But she immediately got on the phone. We both were trying to contact TSA. Online, Detroit passport services said they were open at 10 a.m. So I was like, if we leave now, we can get there within plenty of time to get your passport, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, 5 hours later, we are in line at the Columbus Twin Rivers or something, right downtown there. And it's so funny because you hear stuff in your head and you're like, that doesn't apply to me. So George has his birth certificate, obviously, little George, and his dad, George Jr., because there's another senior, Grandpa George, and then little Georgie. But they say 100 times every 5 minutes, the lady goes, if you have a passport or if you have a birth certificate and you have two parties on the birth certificate, both parties need to be here in order to get your passport. I probably heard her say that 20 times and I'm like, that doesn't apply to us. Why? Why doesn't that apply to us? So we get to the counter and they say, this other person has to be here. Not that we would have gotten the passport the same day anyway, because the Twin Rivers or whatever the address is, they don't do 1 day passports. And she was the sweetest. I give it to the people that work at the passport office because they got some wild things to deal with. But she almost cried. And poor Georgie, I was devastated. I mean, I was crying in the car and oh, that was the other thing. We got there and I just took my checkbook and a credit card, but it's cash only and exact change or debit card. Of course, I didn't have those things. So we took our number and we're sitting there waiting to get our passport. And I was like, Georgia, I think we have to go get some cash. So we actually left, went to Short North Bank, Chase on Short North. And by the time we got back, they were at number 21 and we were number 34. And I looked at him, I was like, dang, dude, we didn't even need to forfeit our spot in line. So, all that to say, he still didn't get to go on vacation. He did not get to go. And I was such a loafer for the first 2 days, the rest of the day, Saturday. And it was just pitiful because we got home from the passport fiasco and like we were packing for the day. So I went and dropped him off at his dad's. And I mean, I just, no amount of parenting or, um, grace. There was nothing giving myself. I felt disgusted. I was awful. I was so sad. I looked at Georgie in the car when I was crying and I was like, George, I need you to tell me right now if you are upset. Because if you are not upset, I would like to stop crying. And I just want to know if you're upset. And he goes, of course I'm upset. Why? And unless he wants attention and like actually hurts himself, he's pretty good at hiding emotions. So, yeah, it was gut wrenching. I think the worst feeling as a parent is actually living home alone in real life. I mean, that's what it was. And then my husband was upset. And then at the end of it all, I was like, I'm buying my kid a pool. I'm buying him a pool. I like chat GPT to pool. I sent him a picture and I said, I'm sorry you can't come, but this is what I'm going to get you. Like trying to buy his forgiveness. We still haven't gotten the pool yet, but we're on like our fourth round of quotes. So that was diabolical. And that's really when everything came to a halt with like this state of peace that I had been in because I just really, and maybe that goes back to like my summer parenting. My little sister, Amanda, she is the epitome of the celebratory parent, and I'm little envious of it. She does a very, very good job of celebrating her children's events. For instance, her dog just turned 2, and she had a birthday party for him, a banner, all the things. And he's a fur child, not even one of her real children. Well, he's a real child, but, not a birth child. I'm not that mom, and sometimes I get upset at myself because I actually feel like a jerk right now because my mom was really good at all that stuff. My mom celebrated everything we did. I mean, we were always in recitals, we were always graduations. We had all the things to celebrate. Now, at that same time, I did go to my 5-year-old's preschool graduation, which was the cutest thing that Goddard put on. Anyway, I just felt like a piece of crap parent, and talk about giving yourself grace. I could not. I could not. And I think the only thing that saved me that day was like me just I don't even want to say praying because it wasn't a pray. It was a plea for my life. I was like, please, dear God, I know that there's a reason for everything, but I'm not asking for the reason, but like I know that there's a reason why this happened. And I don't know what it is. And I don't know when I'll find out, but I tried to give myself peace in that there was a reason why he didn't go on that vacation. So the silver lining of that is a week or two before the vacation, my dad reached out and asked if he could take Georgie on a cousin's trip to Hilton Head. So I was able to reframe this for myself and for the kids that Georgie got his own vacation and Bradley got his own vacation, which is kind of cool because they will get their own level of spoiledness. Um, on those trips. Now, in looking back at the vacation, we got back a week and a half ago. I do think that the 10-year-old would have been miserable. We went to a resort in Mexico where the seaweed that they have there, it smells like rotten eggs or sewage, however your smells work. And the sand, while very fluffy, it's on like a concrete. My husband and I couldn't figure out if it was like man made or like sheetrock, but it wasn't like diggable sand. Like you couldn't dig a huge hole in the sand. You could dig a shovel of sand. So beach waves and playing in the sand are like really strong points for George at the beach. And he might have been very sad. So that's how I'm justifying the fact that I forgot my son at home and forgot to update his passport for our family vacation. But moving on. So after that whole episode of everything, my business growing, the kids doing the summer things, my husband, he's going to kill me for this, but for the first time in his entire life, he's 47 years old. He got a job. Very, very excited. He is going to work for one of Ohio's premier luxury remodeling companies, which is, I mean, that's what he's been doing his whole adult life, but in hopes of getting out of the house. I don't know to what extent I've really poured into this podcast talking about how much he's done at our house, but just a quick recap. We purchased an 1,100 square foot rectangle of a house. That's all it was. It was just this 1,100 square feet straight rectangle with the intention of building a second story. We quickly found out the front of our house had no footer. We also found out that every interior wall, for the most part, is cinder block, and it drastically changed our plans, and we ended up doing a whole addition off the back of the house and then renovating the front of the house. All that to say, for 2.5 years now, he has been living in the house and working in the house. And it got to a point where he was like, Kendra, I have to get out of the house. So we found an opportunity that he is excited to explore. Today is his first day at work. So I'm like anxiously awaiting a message or something from him to see how he liked his first day. So everything's just moving along. And then, yeah, so back to my niece's graduation party, because that's where this giant light was like, it's time to come back to the podcast. This whole podcast had already been weighing on me, not in a guilty way, like I said, but more like, Kendra, you really need to get an episode out. And it wasn't like that at all. It was prayerful. I just kept praying, God, when it's your time, move me because I don't want to come back just because my calendar said I should. It did not feel organic. It didn't feel like the ministry that I started this for. And like I said, two people came up to me at my niece's party and both of them asked, so, what's going on with the podcast? And I remember being like, all right, Jesus, I hear you. It's time. And God did the thing he always seems to do in my life where it just happened. So Psalms 91 immediately. I mean, I didn't search, I didn't flip through the pages. I just opened it and I literally laughed out loud because I think this is how God and I communicate. It's just this funny thing of being right in front of me in that moment and it all clicked. So the verse was, he who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will abide in the shadow of the Almighty. Dwells, not visits, not performs, not produces, dwells, lives there, makes a home there. And I couldn't stop thinking about that word because that's exactly what the last 8 weeks felt like. I wasn't producing, I wasn't building, I was abiding. I wasn't trying to create content. I was simply walking with Jesus and friends. I don't think that's a coincidence. I think that's the invitation. So I'm sitting there staring at Psalms 91, and one word just kept jumping off the page, dwells. He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will abide in the shadow of the Almighty. Not visits, not checks in every once in a while, not produces, not performs, dwells, lives there, makes a home there. And I thought, that is exactly what these last 8 weeks have felt like. Not productive, not impressive, not content worthy, just dwelling. And then God started connecting the dots that I hadn't seen before. And I thought about Matthew because, of course, Matthew had shown up on my Bible app, and it was Matthew 6:33. But seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. Friends, I think I accidentally lived this verse. I wasn't chasing my podcast. I wasn't chasing social media. I wasn't chasing my broker announcement. I wasn't chasing business. Ironically, oh, I'm getting chills. I feel like I'm going to cry. I wasn't chasing any of those things. God was just taking care of me, and my business grew, my team grew, my relationships grew, my faith grew. And not because I was striving, but because I was seeking. I was so plugged in and actually backwards from the way I had been doing for so long, like being present in the content and creating and highly scheduled. I was the antithesis of work harder, hustle more, stay consistent, don't disappear, keep producing. But instead, Jesus, seek first. That's it. And somehow I think we've made following Jesus like another thing to accomplish, another box to check, another thing to perform. But Jesus never asked us to perform, he asked us to follow. And then another verse came to mind. And this one I actually sought out in trying to get all of my thoughts down for this podcast, but Matthew 11. And this is one of my favorite invitations in all of scripture. Come to me, all who labor and all heavy laden, and I will give you rest. And notice what Jesus doesn't say. He doesn't say, come to me when you've gotten your life together. Come to me after you've answered all your emails. Come to me after you've posted your podcast. Come to me after you've announced your broker's license. No, he just says, come. Bring the unfinished things. Bring the guilt. Bring the striving. Bring the questions. Bring the disappointment. Bring the expired passport. Bring all of it. Just come. And I think without even realizing it, that's what I was doing. I wasn't trying to build a ministry. I wasn't trying to platform. I was just simply coming to Jesus every morning, every closing, every bedtime prayer, every conversation with my husband, every yoga class. I just kept showing up. And then without even realizing it, I started living Psalms 91. Matthew was the invitation. Come to me. Psalms 91 was the result. I dwelled. Do you see it? Seek, come, dwell. Matthew 6, Matthew 11, Psalms 91. They're telling the same story. Seek him first, come to him, stay with him. And somewhere in the staying, peace finds you, not because life gets easier. Mine certainly didn't, but because your soul finally has somewhere to rest. And I wonder if that's what some of us have missing. And let me tell you, I have had a fun couple transactions in real estate. I just talked to Tom Biddle today, a realtor here in town, and he had texted me about something I have going on, and I hesitated texting him back because I was like, for my peace, I'm the God thing is don't gossip, you know, all the things. And bless his heart, he called me and he said, hey, this is wild what you have going on. And I just told him, I said, Tom, I've been praying, what to do in this situation. And I do want to say that I'm grateful for my professional and business relationships. And it's funny because I'm just now, like at this very second, reflecting that call from Tom today. I feel like I'm going to cry again. That call from Tom today was supposed to happen because my conversation with Tom, it gave me peace to help me through this conflict that I didn't even ask him about. And we bonded over some God things. But back to what some of us have been missing. Maybe we've been trying so hard to produce fruit that we've forgotten to stay connected with the vine. Maybe we've been chasing purpose instead of chasing Jesus. Because here's what I've learned. Purpose is a byproduct of proximity. The closer I got to Jesus, the less obsessed I became with figuring out my purpose because suddenly my purpose became so simple. Stay close. Everything else flows from there. And then it hit me. I think I know why my podcast disappeared for a little while. Not because God was punishing me, not because I lost my passion, not because I had nothing to say, but because God was inviting me to receive before asking me to give. He was reminding me that ministry isn't just what happens. This is crazy. He was reminding me that ministry isn't just what happens behind a microphone, but ministry happened when I prayed over families buying their first home. Ministry happened when I prayed over my kids. Ministry happened sitting beside my husband talking about his future. Ministry happened crying over Mexico. And maybe that's the ministry God cared about most, not the one with the downloads, the one with obedience. So before I let you go, there's one more thing that I want to tell you. When I sat down to record today, I thought I was recording episode 12, but somewhere in the middle of all of this, I realized I think this is the end of season 1. And honestly, I think I didn't know that until right now because season 1 started from a place of unrest. The Charlie Kirk thing hit me to my core. You guys know that from the very first episode. And God did stir something inside of me. But I started asking what to do with my faith, my voice, my story, my life. What am I doing? And I started this podcast looking for purpose. And somewhere between episode 1 and today, God gave me peace. Not the peace that comes from having everything figured out, but the peace that comes from seeking Him first, and the peace that comes from accepting just the invitation to come, and the peace that comes from dwelling in His presence. And because of that, I'm not coming into season 2 looking for purpose anymore. I'm coming back with purpose that has been shaped by peace. And friends, I don't know what season 2 is going to look like. I honestly don't. I have nothing on paper, but if season 1 has taught me anything, it's this. God is a much better author than I am. I had plans. I had every episode written out. I had a timeline. I had the perfect timing, and I had the outline. We're still waiting for Emily to come back, but God wrote my testimony, and I'm so incredibly grateful that He did. So thank you for listening. Thank you for praying. Thank you for sticking around while God was teaching me what it actually means to receive the grace that I've spent the last year talking about. And maybe that's where I'll leave you today. If you've been striving, trying to prove yourself, trying to keep up, trying to produce, trying to earn, I want to invite you to something different this week. Just seek first His kingdom. Come to Jesus, dwell in His presence. The rest, He'll take care of. I love you guys. Thank you for walking through season 1 with me. I cannot wait to see what God has planned for season 2. And this is all God's grace. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Let me know what you want to see on the next season.